done incorrectly that brings water into a job. Right now, where were we last week, Tom? Last time we were in PA somewhere? Was it Philly? Yeah, I think it was in Philadelphia. And we did one of these shows, a similar show to this, and a fella was in the audience. This is the lawyer I was talking about. And at the end of the presentation, he came up. He came to learn how to install a window. And why would a lawyer want to learn how to install a window? Yeah, because the client that he's working for has leaking windows in his house. And he wasn't sure, well, how do I advise this client on where to go? He's got a $4 million house, and every window's leaking. Every door sill is leaking. But what they did, he showed me the pictures, is that the weather-resistant barrier is wrapped to the inside, and the window is installed on top of the weather-resistant barrier. The water's coming down the weather-resistant barrier right behind this flange and right into the house. That's not rocket science. Of course it's leaking. But here's the deal. The house is finished. It's sided. The people are living inside. And now those cherry floors and the Brazilian hardwood floors are starting to swell because they're getting moisture. They've got leaks in the ceiling. What do you think it's going to cost this contractor to fix it? A lot of money. Because it was never installed properly on day number one. And here's the thing, is that all the attorney's trying to do, and I'm not a big fan of attorneys, especially when you're opposite sides of the fence with them. But the fact is, this guy's trying to just get the contractor to do the right thing. He doesn't want to sue him, he just wants him to fix it. But the contractor doesn't have the knowledge to fix it. So essentially, what he's asked me to do is just to review all of the engineer's reports on what he thinks we should do to fix this guy's house. Do you want to be on the other side of that? Not me. This is the most important piece right here. When we do our weather-resistant barrier, this is called the integration. When we integrate the whole system and we make it one, right across the top. Now in this case, this has a welded seam construction. I'm not too worried about it. We put our top piece on, and now we've completely weatherized our entire system here. So we have the flashing tape. Notice that the flange is on top. Remember the gaps we left on the bottom? We want to make sure that we get those gaps so the water can drain out. So we're really good on the inside. And then on the top, we'll roll this out. Now, what I really should do is, let me just do something wrong here. Let me put a piece on here wrong, and I'll just show you what I mean by a fish mount. Put this piece on. If this were a long piece, Tom, would you be able to get on this with the camera? I'm going to try to see if I can mess this up on purpose. All right, this is a real radical fish mount right here. When the tape is not sitting even, can you see that on the screen? How it causes a cup on the top. If you were to just squish this over, what we've done is we've created a channel right on the top that can bring that water right into that seam. So when you have a situation like this, what you want to do is just cut that out completely and just put a new piece right over the top. Eliminate that little buckle, especially the ones that are going to, if you have them on the side or if they're facing down. That's the most important thing you have to watch for. As long as this tape is well adhered, you're not going to get any water behind it. Now, if you're using a weather-resistant barrier like we had in the beginning, you would at this point fold that flap down. The flap would come down over the top so that you make sure that the water is now going to drain around the outside. This is the second problem on that house that I'm going to look at for this guy, is that after they install the windows, they put trim packages on the outside. After they put the trim package on, they were very smart. They put a piece of flashing over the top and put the flashing on top of the weather-resistant barrier. They did not integrate the weather-resistant barrier to the flashing. So now the water comes down the weather-resistant barrier and goes behind the flashing, and the flashing is useless. So now if you're going to put a piece of flashing on top of this, what do? We're going to put another piece of tape on top of it. So each layer, so we're constantly thinking about how's the water going to get past my point of entry here. And I eliminate all of these points of entry, and we don't have a problem with water getting to the interior. I've got the perm rating that I want in that 10 to 20s, that sweet spot, exactly where I want it. But at this point now, there's one other weak spot on the window. Because remember, this is open on the bottom. We left those gaps. So I want water to get out, but what's going to fight to try to get in? What's going to try to get in? Wind or air pressure differential. If you've ever taken out a window, maybe a remodeling job that you have stuck with insulation all around it, after 20 years, what color is that insulation? Why is it black? It's air movement. It's a really good air filter. The air is moving in and out of this window constantly. And as it moves, it filters that air and it turns it black. So what is it telling you about the efficiency of our insulation value there? It's not doing much for us. It's hardly doing anything because we have all of this pressure differential that allows the air to move in and out. The worst time that this shows up is what happened to me on a job is, we had one of those little breakfast nooks, and in a really cold winter day, what ended up happening was they could feel a slight breeze coming through the molding. And what it was the air blowing through the fiberglass insulation, and they could feel it because of the difference in the temperature that they were feeling. And so that was a callback. We had to take the trim out, and we had to reseal it, make sure everything was sealed up good. We actually used tape on the interior. It was the only way I could stop it at that point. But what we want to do is make sure that we seal it. So if you're going to seal it, what I like to do is I like to use a professional grade foam. Now, some of the manufacturers are going to say, oh, don't use foam, don't use foam. The reason that we don't use foam on windows years ago, anybody remember like when it first came out? When you put it in there, it got out of control. It got totally out of control and it distorted the window and it jammed the window and it created all sorts of problems. So that is not the kind of foam that we want to use. Now, there's two types of foam you can get. What we're looking for, if you're going to foam a window, there's three characteristics that you want to make sure that you look for. Number one, minimal expanding. That means when you put it in the opening, that it's not going to expand a lot. It's minimal expanding. The second thing is low pressure as opposed to high pressure. The difference between a minimal expanding and a regular expansion is if you ever get the one that's called a crack filler or a hole filler. You put a little bit in there and it just expands like crazy. This will not expand that much. It's called minimal expanding. This is the Great Stuff Pro Series. And the last thing you want to make sure is that it's closed cell. That means that air can't move through it. So we're stopping the air movement. When we stop the air movement, we stop moisture intrusion, minimal expanding, and of course it doesn't have the pressure to distort. So what do we do with it? Now, I always trash guys that use the foam cans of the straws. And I just found out from the Dow guy why I hate this so much. This is a one-shot deal. If you're going to foam your windows and you want to use the cans or the straw, you got to use it up the same day. And the straw, actually, after you use it once, if you put it down for a half hour, you got to get another straw. That's going to be useless too, unless you clean it out. So to me, this is like the homeowner version of foam. But remember that, I mean, how many guys have thrown out half cans of foam? Right? I mean, yeah, me too. I've thrown out tons of them. I hate them. I wouldn't buy it. So I finally got myself a pro gun. And the deal, and any guys from Shelley's here? You guys sell these things, right? You have the pro gun? What's today? Oh, you're selling them. Oh, okay, cool. All right, well, here's the point. The pro gun, what this allows you to do, is this charged? If I pull the trigger, what's going to happen?
It's closed right now, so nothing will happen. You can't pull the trigger.
Oh, good. Good idea. When I do pull the trigger, there's a little needle. I didn't want to make a mess of myself. Right here on the tip is where you release the foam. And so none of the foam in here, the foam in here is never exposed to the outside moisture or the air. And so it will not cure in here. And when you release the